Warning, this story contains themes of betrayal, emotional distress, and calculated revenge that may be intense for some readers. Heartbreak and payback lie ahead. It started with the scent of another man's cologne on my wife's scarf, a scent I knew all too well. It belonged to Marcus, my business partner, my best friend. At first I dismissed it, a hug, a casual meeting. But then came the late nights, the hushed phone calls, the sudden password change on our shared tablet. My gut, a loyal old dog, started growling, and it wouldn't shut up. The man who built a business on trust was about to discover he was living in a house of cards. My heart shattered, but from the fragments, a cold, sharp-edged resolve began to form. They thought I was a fool. They were about to learn I was a historian, and I was taking meticulous notes. You think you know how this story ends? Think again. Before we dive into the wreckage, hit that like and subscribe button. And comment below, have you ever faced betrayal? What's your ultimate revenge fantasy or your path to healing? Let's share some stories. Part 1, The Hum of a Lie. The foundation of my life was built on two pillars, my marriage to Isabella and the architectural firm I'd co-founded with Marcus. For 22 years, those pillars felt like granite, solid, unshakable. I was Alex Russo, 48 years old, a man who believed in blueprints, in structure, in the predictable and beautiful physics of a well-designed life. Our suburban Chicago home, a modern masterpiece of glass and cedar I'd designed myself, was my sanctuary. It was where Izzy and I had raised our daughter Sophia, now away at college, and where we were supposed to glide into the comfortable quiet of our later years. But lately, the quiet wasn't comfortable. It was heavy. It was the sound of unspoken words, of a gulf widening in the king-sized bed we shared. It started subtly. Izzy, who once lived in soft cotton and the scent of lavender, started favoring silk blouses and a new, musky perfume that always seemed to be freshly applied in the evenings. She'd always been beautiful, but now she was curated. Her workouts became more intense, her phone a permanent extension of her hand, angled away from me with a casualness that was anything but. "Big project at the gallery?" I asked, noticing her tapping away on her phone during dinner, a small, secretive smile playing on her lips. "Just coordinating a new installation," she'd reply, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "It's a nightmare of logistics," I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I was the one working insane hours, trying to land the Blackwood Tower project, a skyscraper that would redefine the city's skyline and secure our legacy. Marcus and I were on the cusp of everything we'd ever dreamed of. The late nights I spent at the office, I reasoned, were creating a void at home. It was my fault, so I tried harder. I booked a weekend at a spa in Lake Geneva, the kind she used to love. "Oh, Alex, that's sweet," she'd said, her smile tight. "But I can't. The gallery is having a huge patron event that weekend. I have to be there." The excuses, I realized later, were like hairline fractures in a foundation. Invisible at first, until the whole structure starts to groan. The real groan came one Tuesday night. I came home early, a bouquet of her favorite peonies in my hand, planning to cook her the pasta carbonara she adored. The house was empty. I checked her location on our shared app, a feature she'd insisted on for safety, and saw her pin at a downtown hotel. The Hamilton, not a gallery, not a museum, a hotel. My call went straight to voicemail. "Hey, just got home. Was hoping to surprise you, give me a call." My voice was steady, a betrayal of the tremor in my hands. An hour later, she called back, her voice breathless and flustered. "Oh my God, Alex, I'm so sorry, my phone died." A few of us from the gallery went for a drink at the Hamilton's rooftop bar after a meeting. I lost track of time. "No problem," I said, the peonies already wilting on the counter. "Just have fun, be safe." The lie was too smooth. It hummed with a frequency I was finally starting to hear. And it was in that humming silence, with the scent of flowers dying in my perfect, hollow home, that I knew. I didn't know who, and I didn't know why. But I knew the life I had meticulously designed was being demolished from the inside out. I just needed the new blueprint. Part 2, The Digital Ghost. Suspicion is a poison. It seeps into everything, turning sweet memories into potential lies. Every late night she'd worked, every girl's trip she'd taken, every time she'd laughed at a text and said, "It's just Sophia," now played in my head on a loop of doubt. I became a ghost in my own life, watching, listening, feeling the cold spots where the warmth used to be. The turning point wasn't a lipstick-stained collar or a whispered name in her sleep. It was far more modern, far more clinical. It was our family iPad. Izzy rarely used it, preferring her phone, but she'd forgotten to log out of her messaging app. One evening, while sketching a design revision for the Blackwood project, a notification popped up on the screen. It was from a name I didn't recognize. Tonight was incredible. Still can't get your laugh out of my head. My blood went cold. My fingers, usually so steady on a drafting pencil, trembled as I opened the app. And there it was. Months of them, a secret life laid bare in glowing pixels. Izzy, you were pretty incredible yourself. I feel alive with you. He doesn't make you feel alive. Izzy, Alex makes me feel comfortable, safe, like a well-managed portfolio. With you, it's like the market crashing and soaring all in one day. It's terrifying and thrilling. I'm not just a thrill, Bella, you know that. Izzy, don't call me that. Only he calls me that. The hypocrisy was a physical blow. She was protecting the sanctity of a nickname while desecrating the sanctity of our vows. But who was M? The profile picture was a generic icon. I scrolled back weeks, then months, my heart a jackhammer against my ribs. I saw their first messages, the flirtation, the planning. They talked about art, about wine, about feeling trapped in their lives. They talked about me. Does he suspect anything? Izzy, Alex, no, he's too busy building his empire. He sees the building, but he doesn't see the people inside. He hasn't really seen me in years. That line cut deeper than the affair itself. It was an indictment of who I had become, a hardworking provider who had forgotten to be a husband. For a moment, a wave of guilt washed over me. Had I driven her to this? What if I confronted her now? I thought, my mind racing. Scream, yell, throw the iPad against the wall. We could go to therapy, maybe fix this. Maybe I could still save us. It was a tempting thought, a path back to the familiar pain, the one I understood. But then I kept scrolling, and the betrayal took on a new, more sinister dimension. The conversation started shifting from romance to business. My business, the Blackwood pitch is coming up. Is he nervous? Izzy, consumed. He thinks it's his masterpiece. It's our masterpiece. He just holds the pencil. Izzy, he's been working on a new structural concept, something with the core bracing. He thinks it's the detail that will win the contract. Interesting. Any chance you've seen the drafts, and then the final, chilling exchange from just a few days prior? Izzy, we need to be smart about this. If we do this, it has to be clean. He'll be ruined, but we'll be free. He won't know what hit him. Once the board sees my revised proposal, with a few of his genius touches and the funding I've secured, they'll vote him out. We'll have the firm, we'll have everything. It will be ours, Bella. Izzy, don't call me that. Fine, Isabella, our masterpiece. The way he talked about the firm, there was only one person it could be. Marcus, my partner, the man who was the best man at my wedding. The man my daughter called Uncle Marcus. The pieces clicked into place with the sickening finality of a coffin lid closing. This wasn't just a cheating wife, this was a coup. They weren't just stealing my heart, they were plotting to steal my life's work, the legacy I was building for my family. For our family, the ghost of suspicion in my house now had a name. And it was grinning at me from my best friend's face. Part 3, a stranger in my own bed. That night, Isabella came home around 11 p.m. She drifted into the bedroom, a soft smile on her face, humming a tune I didn't recognize. She smelled of wine and her new, musky perfume, my perfume, the one she'd been wearing for him. Hey, honey, she said, kissing my cheek. Her lips were cool. Sorry, I'm so late. Janet had a complete meltdown over the lighting for the new exhibit. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with, the fiery art history major who debated philosophy with me until dawn. I saw the mother of my child, the woman who'd held my hand through my father's funeral. But now, superimposed over that image, was a stranger, a conspirator, the architect of my ruin. No worries, I said, my voice eerily calm. How's Janet? Oh, you know Janet, a drama queen. She laughed, a light, airy sound that now felt like a shard of glass in my ear. The urge to scream, to shove the iPad in her face and watch her perfect composure shatter, was a physical force. I wanted to see the panic in her eyes. I wanted her to explain how she could lie to my face after planning my crucifixion. But my rage was suddenly eclipsed by a cold, terrifying clarity. If I exploded now, I'd lose. They'd deny everything, paint me as the jealous, unstable husband. They were already 2 steps ahead. I needed to be 10. She slipped into bed beside me, her body curling into its usual position against my back. Her warmth was a lie. Her touch was a phantom limb, a memory of a connection that had already been amputated. I lay there rigid, feigning sleep, my mind a whirlwind of schematics and strategies. I was an architect after all. I didn't just demolish things. I planned, I designed. And I was about to design the most intricate, load-bearing trap they would never see coming. The next few weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare, mostly against myself. I lived a bifurcated life. In one reality, I was Alex Russo, loving husband and dedicated business partner. I made breakfast for Izzy. I complimented her new dress. I brainstormed with Marcus over blueprints, slapping him on the back and laughing at his jokes, the metallic taste of betrayal on my tongue. In my other reality, I was a spy. I became obsessed with the nuances of their betrayal. It was in the way Marcus would hold my gaze just a second too long, a flicker of pity, or was it triumph, in his eyes. It was in the way Izzy would ask about my day, her questions just a little too specific, probing for details about the Blackwood project. They thought they were playing me. They had no idea I was now the one directing the play. I flashed back to our honeymoon in Italy. We were on the Amalfi Coast, young and delirious with love. We rented a small boat, and as the sun set, casting a golden glow on the water, Izzy had turned to me, her eyes full of a sincerity I would have bet my life on. "Promise me we'll never become boring, Alex," she'd whispered. "Promise me we'll always be an adventure," I had promised. But somewhere along the line, the adventure had become my work, and she had gone searching for a new one. I mourned that girl on the boat. I mourned the man I was, the one who believed in promises. That man was gone. In his place stood someone colder, more patient. Someone who understood that sometimes the only way to deal with a rotten foundation is to bring the whole damn building down on everyone's head. Part 4, The Sound of Silence. The first step was to move beyond their digital ghosts. Text messages were damning, but they could be explained away, dismissed as fantasy or flirtation. I needed their voices. I needed their intent, clear and undeniable, captured in high fidelity. My war for evidence began not with a bang, but with a quiet trip to an online spy shop. My home, my sanctuary, became a recording studio for their lies. A new smoke detector in our bedroom, a sleek model with a pinhole camera and microphone. A digital voice recorder, no bigger than a flash drive, that I magnetically attached to the underside of the passenger seat in Izzy's car. The most audacious move was at the office. Over a weekend, I went in under the guise of needing to work on the Blackwood models. I replaced the high-end pen holder on Marcus's desk, a gift from me, ironically, with an identical one that contained a voice-activated recorder with a month-long battery life. The waiting was the hardest part. Every day felt like a year. I'd come home, kiss my wife, and then when she was in the shower, I'd retrieve the SD cards, my hands shaking slightly. I'd sit in my study, the door locked, headphones on, and listen to the soundtrack of my life's implosion. The first recordings were mostly banal, Izzy on the phone with her mother, Marcus closing a deal with a supplier, but then I'd catch them. "He's completely oblivious," I heard Izzy's voice, tinny and distant from the recorder in her car. She was talking to Marcus on speakerphone. "He actually bought me flowers yesterday. It was almost sad." "Let him be sad, Bella," Marcus's voice, smooth and predatory. "He'll have plenty of time for that when he's sitting in an empty office with a severance check. Did you get a look at the revised schematics for the tower's foundation? He keeps them locked in his personal drive now." "He's getting paranoid. It doesn't matter, your description was enough. My guys are reverse engineering it. The innovation is in the dispersal of the load through the subcores. It's brilliant, I'll give him that. But a good idea is only as good as the man presenting it." I had to stop the recording, my breath catching in my chest, my innovation. A concept I'd spent 6 months perfecting, born from a sleepless night and a dozen crumpled sketches. He wasn't just stealing my wife, he was stealing my mind. The bedroom recordings were the most brutal. I'd listened to their clandestine calls, made when she thought I was asleep or out of the house. They spoke of a future together, of trips to Paris, of running the firm as true partners. They laughed about my habits, my predictable nature, my love for old jazz music. They dissected me like a corpse, piece by piece, while I lay in the next room, very much alive. One night I heard this exchange. "Izzy," her voice a whisper. Are you sure this will work? The board loves Alex. Marcus, the board loves money, honey. And I've got new investors lined up, investors who are loyal to me. When I present Alex's unstable financials for the project, which I've been carefully curating, by the way, and then show them my more cost-effective but equally brilliant design, coupled with the new funding, they'll cut him loose. They have to, it's just business. Izzy and his shares, Marcus, the morality clause in our partnership agreement. Remember, conduct unbecoming that could damage the firm's reputation. A messy, public divorce after he finds out about us will be more than enough to trigger it. His shares will be bought out at a fraction of their value. It's perfect. I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were listening to a fictional podcast. The sheer arrogance, the cold, reptilian calculus of their plan, it was almost impressive. They had thought of everything, or so they believed. They had no idea that their every whispered conspiracy was being archived, cataloged, and stored on a password-protected, encrypted hard drive. They were building their case against me, and I was building a museum of their treachery. Part 5, Their Arrogant Symphony. As I gathered my arsenal of secrets, I had to play my part with increasing precision. It was the most difficult performance of my life. I had to sit across from Marcus in board meetings, nodding along as he presented preliminary data, my data, subtly twisted, and act impressed. This is some sharp analysis, Mark, I'd say, forcing a smile. You're seeing angles I'm missing, just trying to keep up with the master, he'd reply, clapping me on the shoulder. The weight of his hand felt like a tombstone. At home, Izzy's behavior became bolder. She was living in the future, a future that didn't include me, and her detachment was palpable. She stopped asking about my day, her feigned interest replaced by an airy indifference. She was a woman waiting for a starting gun. Her confidence was her biggest mistake. She saw my calm acceptance of her late nights and work trips as weakness, as the sad resignation of a man who knew his marriage was failing but was too pathetic to do anything about it. One evening she came home glowing. She was wearing a new dress, a slinky emerald green number that I'd never seen before. Wow, I said, looking up from my laptop. You look stunning. Big night at the gallery. Patrons' dinner, she said, checking her reflection. You know, the usual schmoozing. I knew from a recording in her car that she was meeting Marcus at the Hamilton for a celebratory dinner. They had just secured the backing of the new investors Marcus had mentioned. They were celebrating my funeral. Well, knock 'em dead is, I said, my voice even. I planned to, she said with a smirk and walked out the door. That night I didn't listen to the recordings. I didn't need to. I didn't want to hear their laughter, their toasts to my demise. Instead, I opened my own laptop and began to compose. Not a letter, not a confession, an email. I needed an ally. My lawyer, David Chen, was brilliant with contracts, but too much of a straight arrow for what I had in mind. I needed someone who understood corporate savagery. I found her in a woman named Anya Sharma, a forensic accountant a colleague had once recommended. Her firm's tagline was, "We find what people don't want found." I laid out the basics in a carefully worded email, omitting the infidelity, but focusing on my suspicions of corporate espionage and financial manipulation by my partner. I attached just one audio file, the conversation where Marcus detailed his plan to falsify financials and oust me. Her reply came in under an hour. Mr. Russo, your instincts are correct. Do not confront your partner. Do not let your wife know you suspect anything. Say nothing, we have work to do. My fee is $10,000 as a retainer. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. my office. Come alone. Meeting Anya was like a splash of ice water. She was a small, sharp woman in her 50s with eyes that seemed to x-ray everything. I played her a selection of the recordings. She listened intently, her face a mask of professional neutrality. When I was done, she leaned back in her chair. This is not a divorce, Mr. Russo, and it's not just a partnership dispute. This is a conspiracy to commit fraud, she said, her voice crisp. The infidelity is the emotional component, but the fraud is where we have leverage. They've given you the rope. Our job is to let them build the gallows and walk right up to the noose. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a client, and Anya Sharma was my architect of righteous revenge. Part 6, The Architect of the Fall. Anya's plan was beautiful in its simplicity and brutality. They want to use the morality clause against you, she'd said with a thin smile. Adorable. We're going to use their own conspiracy to trigger a criminal investigation and dissolve the partnership on terms that will leave him with nothing but legal bills. For the next 2 weeks, while Izzy and Marcus were finalizing their endgame, Anya and I were building ours. Her team of forensic accountants descended on our firm's books like wolves. Working from the data I provided, they uncovered the financial curating Marcus had been doing. He'd been rerouting certain expenses, inflating project costs, and creating a false paper trail to make it look like my half of the business was bleeding money and my Blackwood project was a financial black hole. Meanwhile, I continued my performance. I played the part of the beleaguered, distracted husband and partner perfectly. I'd appear stressed, confess to Marcus that I was worried the Blackwood numbers weren't adding up, and ask for his advice. "We'll figure it out, Alex," he'd say, his face a perfect mask of concern. "I'm here for you, buddy. We're in this together." The recordings of these conversations were pure gold. The climax was set for the quarterly board meeting. Marcus had managed to get it moved up. This was it. This was the day he planned to execute me. The night before, Izzy was particularly distant. I found her in the walk-in closet, packing a small, expensive-looking suitcase. "Going somewhere?" I asked casually. "Just a weekend trip with the girls from the gallery," she said, not looking at me. "De-stressing before the big summer exhibit." My heart, a dull, aching organ, gave a final, pathetic little twist. Her girls' trip bag was for her new life with him. She was planning on leaving me the day I was publicly humiliated and professionally destroyed. What if I just let her go? A voice in my head whispered, "Just walk away, start over. Forget the firm, forget the money, just find peace." It was the siren song of the defeated man, the man I was supposed to be. But when I looked at her, so cool and confident in her deception, I didn't feel defeat. I felt a cold, hard resolve. She wasn't just leaving me, she was an active participant in my ruin. Peace could wait, justice came first. "Have a great time," I said, and went to my study. I spent the rest of the night preparing. I compiled the final audio clips, the key financial documents Anya's team had unearthed, and the screenshots of the text messages into a seamless presentation. I titled it The Russo-Kane Partnership, a Case Study in Hostile Takeover. Kane was Marcus's last name. It was my masterpiece, not a building of steel and glass, but a meticulous architecture of truth. Part 7, The Boardroom Overture. The boardroom was on the top floor of our downtown office building, a glass-walled box with a panoramic view of the city I loved and had helped to build. The 6 board members were already seated around the long mahogany table. Marcus was at the head, looking smug and powerful in a tailored suit. He gave me a nod, a look that was meant to be sympathetic but was dripping with condescending victory. Izzy wasn't there, of course. She was probably at a spa, waiting for the call that the deed was done. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began, his voice smooth as polished marble. "As you know, we've called this meeting to discuss the future of the firm and, regrettably, to address some serious concerns regarding the financial viability of the Blackwood Tower project under Alex's leadership." He launched into his presentation. It was slick. He showed his falsified spreadsheets, his inflated cost projections. He spoke of my distraction lately, hinting at personal problems. I watched him, my expression carefully neutral. I let him lay every single brick of his fraudulent case. I let him build his own prison. "And so," he concluded, his voice resonating with false gravity, "it is with a heavy heart that I and the new investment consortium I represent must propose a motion to remove Alex Russo as managing partner and invoke the character and co. Induct clause of our agreement to force a buyout of his shares." A heavy silence filled the room. The board members looked at me, their faces a mixture of pity and professional coldness. They were business people. They were following the money. Alex, our chairman, a stern man named Peterson, finally asked, "Do you have a response?" "I do," I said, standing up. I walked calmly to the head of the table and plugged my laptop into the presentation screen. "Marcus, your presentation was very thorough, but I believe it was missing some context. I'd like to offer that context now." On the screen, my title slide appeared, "The Russo-Kane Partnership, a Case Study in Hostile Takeover." Marcus's confident smirk flickered. "For the past 3 months," I began, my voice clear and steady, I've been the subject of a coordinated effort to defraud me of my position and my shares in this company. An effort led by my partner, Marcus Kane, and his accomplice. I clicked to the next slide. It was a simple transcript of a text message. Izzy, he'll be ruined but will be free. Marcus, he won't know what hit him. Gasps rippled through the room. Marcus shot to his feet. This is outrageous. This is doctored. It's slander. Is it? I asked, and I pressed play. The room was filled with the sound of his voice, captured from the pen holder on his desk. The board loves money, honey. When I present Alex's unstable financials, they'll cut him loose. It's just business. I played clip after clip, Marcus detailing the plan to Anya's team. Marcus coaching Izzy on what to look for in my private files. Marcus laughing with Izzy about how oblivious I was. With each new recording, the blood drained from his face. The board members stared at him, their expressions shifting from shock to disgust. Then I brought up Anya's forensic analysis, showing his original numbers next to the doctored ones he had just presented. It was a clinical, undeniable vivisection of his fraud. The new investment consortium Marcus mentioned, I said, my voice cold as steel, is being investigated for collusion. And the personal problems and distraction he alluded to were the direct result of discovering that my partner was sleeping with my wife and plotting to destroy my life. I let that hang in the air. The silence was absolute. Peterson looked at Marcus, his face like thunder. Marcus, is this true? Marcus just stood there, speechless, his face a ghastly shade of white. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a dawning horror. He hadn't just lost. He had been annihilated publicly, meticulously. My attorney has already filed a report with the district attorney's office, I said, addressing the board, and I am officially dissolving the partnership. As for the firm, I will be buying out Marcus's shares, as per the real morality and criminal conduct clauses in our agreement. His shares, I believe, are now worth pennies on the dollar. I turned to Marcus. You wanted the firm, I said, my voice barely a whisper. You can have the legal bills, get out of my building. He stumbled out of the room, not looking at anyone. The door clicked shut behind him, the sound of a future ending. Part 8, the echoes of what was. I didn't go home. I couldn't. The house I'd designed as a monument to my love for Isabella was now just a crime scene. Instead, I drove to the one place that felt like mine anymore, the undeveloped lot where the Blackwood Tower would one day stand. I stood there for a long time, looking at the Chicago skyline as the sun began to set. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Izzy. Izzy, the board meeting should be over. Call me. I'm at the hotel. Can't wait to start our life together. She sent it to the wrong person. The irony was so bitter it almost made me laugh. I could picture her sitting in a plush hotel room, champagne on ice, waiting for a call that would never come. Waiting for a man who was, at that very moment, probably talking to his own high-priced lawyers. I typed back a simple reply. Alex, wrong number, and you should probably call your lawyer, Isabella. Marcus is a little busy. I attached one audio file to the text, the one where Marcus calls her honey and explains how the board loves money more than anything. I imagined her listening to it, the smooth confidence in his voice suddenly sounding like a death knell. Her call came 2 seconds later. I let it ring and ring and ring. Then I blocked her number. The fallout was swift and brutal. The DA pressed charges against Marcus for fraud and embezzlement. Our story, a sordid tale of sex, lies, and corporate espionage, became whispered gossip in our industry. Some people looked at me with pity, others with a kind of morbid admiration. I didn't care. I was too busy dismantling one life and designing another. Izzy tried to fight the divorce, but with the mountain of evidence I had, it was a fool's errand. She got to keep her clothes and her car. The house, the assets, the life we had built, that was mine. It was a cold victory. I'd won, but what had I lost in the process? One afternoon, months later, she showed up at the empty house. The movers had taken everything to my new downtown apartment. She stood in the cavernous living room, a ghost in a place that used to be hers. Why, Alex? She asked, her voice raw. Why did you have to destroy him? Why did you have to destroy us like that? I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't see a villain. I saw a sad, lost woman who had chased a thrill and ended up in a wreckage. You're asking the wrong question, Izzy, I said, my voice devoid of anger. You should be asking why you and he thought you had the right to destroy me. You didn't just have an affair. You plotted in cold blood to take everything from me. My work, my reputation, my future, the affair I might have forgiven. The conspiracy, never. I could have chosen a different path, a quieter divorce, let Marcus have the firm and just walked away. There were days I wished I had. The fight had cost me something, a softness, a trust in the world I would never get back. But as I looked at the setting sun through the massive windows of my empty house, I knew I'd made the right choice. Some structures are not meant to be saved. They need to be leveled to the ground so something new, something stronger can be built in their place. Part 9, A Different Kind of Silence. A year later, I was standing on the 50th floor of the half-finished Blackwood Tower. The wind whipped around the steel skeleton, a lonely, whistling sound. It was no longer a monument to a partnership, but a testament to my own survival. The firm was mine, leaner and more focused than before. We had won the contract, my original vision intact. I rarely thought of Marcus. His trial was a mess, and he'd ended up taking a plea deal that spared him jail time but left him professionally and financially ruined. Izzy, I'd heard, had moved back to her hometown in Ohio, working at a small community gallery. Our paths would never cross again. Sophia, my daughter, had been the hardest conversation. I told her a sanitized version, focusing on the business betrayal. She was smart, though. She read between the lines. "Mom broke your heart, didn't she, Dad?" She'd ask me over a video call, her eyes full of a wisdom that made me proud and sad all at once. "Yeah, she did, kiddo," ID admitted, "but hearts are resilient. They're designed to withstand a lot of stress." The silence in my life was different now. It wasn't the heavy, humming silence of lies. It was a clean, quiet space. It was the silence of a blank page, of a new blueprint waiting to be drawn. I was dating someone new, a landscape architect named Lena who laughed with her whole body and had no interest in the corporate world. It was easy. It was nice. Maybe one day it would be love. Standing there high above the city, I realized my revenge wasn't the boardroom takedown. That was just the demolition. The real revenge was this: I was still standing. I was building. My foundation was cracked, yes, but I was building on it anyway. A little wiser, a little more cautious, but with a view that was entirely my own. If this story hit home for you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of love, loss, and the long road back. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. Forgive or revenge? Is there a third option? Let me know what you would have done in my shoes. Tag a friend who loves a story about justice being served. Check out my next video for a saga about a family inheritance with a deadly secret. And if you have a favorite moment from this story, clip it, share it, and let me know why it resonated with you. Thanks for listening.